folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. We have got a pretty exciting, interesting, maybe a little scary episode for you today.
I'm a little worried about this one.
So, first time. There's a first time for everything.
There is.
And maybe a last time. We will see really soon. So we've got a special podcast episode. Why don't you read the question?
Okay.
And then people will know what our special episode is going to be.
Well, if you're just tuning in for the first time, we are doing summer shorts this summer. We've laughed because we called them summer shorts thinking that they would be really short, and they haven't been.
Not so short.
Not so short, but that's okay. And we are taking questions from all over the world and have gotten some really, really great questions. And if we choose to use your question and read it on air and answer it, then we send you some Redeemed Marriage swag. And then we're going to take all of the questions that we get and put them in a drawing. And at the end of July, 1st of August, we are going to draw one. And if we draw your name, we are going to come have a double date with you wherever you are. So today's is from Florida.
Well, and also, if you have not submitted a question, you still have time. It's not too late. We're still taking questions. And also, you need to have a question in if you want to be a part of the drawing, and we've got something kind of fun and exciting. Not just kind of, really fun and exciting.
On how we're going to draw?
On how we're going to draw.
I was like, I already told them what we were doing.
No, how we're going to draw.
Okay, but I wouldn't mind going to Florida. So that would be a fun one.
Here we go.
So this is the question. Have you ever considered interviewing your sons? They could possibly give couples some great insight on how to address their marital matters with their children. Did they understand what your family was dealing with at a young age, and how did it impact each of them personally? What advice would your boys give to couples from their perspective? Just a few questions. Love y'all.
All right, let me answer the question. The answer is no, we have never considered that. And so thank you for sending that question in, and that's the end of our episode.
Surprise.
That was the most
kidding.
the shortest summer shorts ever.
Yeah, we I don't know that we've ever really thought about it until we got this question, but we were like, all right, here we go. Let's do it. So today we want to welcome our two sons, Luke and Logan.
Yay!
Say hey, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
All right, so just so you guys know, if you've listened to us long enough, you have heard us talk about Luke and Logan. Luke is 22 years old. He just graduated from Davidson College in North Carolina, and he is actually heading out in 1 week to go to Oregon State to play his 5th year of soccer out there. Long way from home, but it'll be a great experience for him, and we're excited about that. And then Logan is 17,
Almost
just
18.
for another couple of weeks, and then he just graduated from high school, and he is headed to Samford, not Stanford.
I'm not that smart.
Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. So he'll be a little closer than 36 hours away. He'll be 3.5 hours away.
Yeah.
So
And if you're from Birmingham and want to cook me a home-cooked meal, reach out to my parents.
or if you're from Oregon.
That one too. Yeah.
That's right.
So we are super proud of both of these boys, and very honored to have them on our podcast today. And I think you guys are really in for a treat, because I'm sure this is very unusual. I don't, who knows if anybody's ever done anything like this before. So we're just going to let them kind of share a little bit about their experience and just kind of the journey that our family has gone through. And maybe they'll be able to give some insights. We get a lot of questions from people, even when we're doing marriage coaching, just like, how do we tell our children? Do we tell our children? What kind of effect is this going to have on them? what will our mistakes do to our children? And so I think it'll be good just to hear their perspective. So thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are just kind of new to the podcast and you're like, I don't even know what these people are talking about. I don't know what journey they would be referring to. 13 years ago, you guys were really young. So 9 and 5 was what we were about. Well, it was 9 and 5 when it happened, August of 2011. So that was, for those of you that are new to our podcast, that was when Heather confessed to being unfaithful in our marriage. And these guys have heard that many, many, many times. It's still a little awkward to have to say that sitting right in front of them. But they're grown-ups, and they also understand just our story and what we've done. But I want to ask you guys first, just to get us kicked off, do either of you guys remember that at all from 9 and 5-year-olds?
So y'all had just started fourth grade and kindergarten. Fourth grade and kindergarten.
I remember a little bit. I definitely didn't understand because I was only 9. But I do remember like y'all coming out. We were like around the fire pit, and y'all had come out and explained everything. And I was old enough to gather the information and kind of think about some things, but didn't really understand or like exactly what it meant and all of that. But the main thing I remember is just like I was just really quiet, and I was like, okay, like didn't really know what to do with the information. But I think Logan was like, do we have any more marshmallows?
Yeah. I actually, from what I've heard, I was stuffing my face with a s'more and had no idea what was going on. And like, I know this wasn't really part of the question, but I didn't really even know like the full depth of the story until later on in my life. And so I just always knew like my parents had a marriage crisis, but I never knew what it was. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I would say. I didn't really remember.
So let me back up a little bit and just kind of tell the listeners. So August of 2011 was when everything happened, and there was a time, and most of you guys that are listeners of ours know parts of the story, and you know that there was a time where Heather actually left the house and went to stay with her parents. And so because of that being such an awkward situation, I mean, she was obviously y'all's mom and was a very good mom, but she wasn't going to be here. And so I don't even know, do y'all even remember?
I didn't even know that happened.
Okay, so we went, and the first night that she was at Buddy and Babby's, that's Heather's parents, we sat y'all down with Buddy and Babby. And we actually said, hey, Mom is going to stay here for a little bit. She's just having some things that she needs to work on. So do y'all remember that conversation or that happening at all?
No.
Do you remember we went and spent the night with my parents, with Nana and Granddaddy? So it was kind of like a sleepover. It was like, hey, we're all going for a sleepover the very first night.
I did not even know. I have a pretty good memory, and I did not know that happened.
Can we just stop and high five? I mean, we crushed it.
Yeah, but the other thing that we did, and I don't know how much. I know sometimes y'all hear us talking to other couples and stuff, so maybe you know some of this, but we actually, for about a week, Mom wasn't here. So she stayed at Buddy and Babby's, and every morning they would bring her back home before y'all woke up. So she would be here for you to wake up, fix breakfast, help you get ready for school, and then we would take you to school, and then she would leave again. And then when y'all would come home, or she was home when y'all were at home, and she would stay until y'all went to bed. And then Buddy would come back and get her, and she would leave. So that only happened, it was about a week. Maybe not even quite a week. And then she came home and stayed. they have looks of shock on their face.
His jaws on the ground, like, what?
Well, because because I'm not married, so I haven't had to really listen to the podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
we've talked about that
Yeah.
a little bit, and so like, I mean, like I said earlier, like I didn't even know the full length of the story.
So what you guys were referring to, though, there were lots of little things along the way, and we were obviously trying to protect you guys. And we went to that marriage intensive where we were at.
Yeah, where'd we stay?
Yeah, well, we were at a soccer tournament in Baton Rouge with Luke, and Buddy and Babby went with us so that they could bring you home. And we left from there and went to this marriage intensive in Georgia.
Question. So I've like always had this memory. We were in a hotel. I don't know where it was, but the two of you stepped outside, and me and Luke were just in there like, what's going on? And then y'all came back in, and y'all were both like teary, and I was like, what's going on? Was that weekend maybe potentially?
Could have been.
Could have been.
Because
been.
yeah,
I mean, because
I
we stayed.
remember-
We obviously. We stayed in a hotel in Baton Rouge.
I
but
think
then,
I remember asking. I was like, "Are you guys getting a divorce?" And y'all both just kind of looked and were like, "No." And yeah,
Interesting.
That's like that memory and stuffing my face with a s'more. Is
Okay,
all that I
so
remember.
here's where I wanted to fast forward a little bit. So that was actually probably 2 years later.
The s'mores.
The s'mores, what y'all are referring to, because by that point, I mean, we had gone through so much healing, counseling, and the marriage intensive and everything, and so we were actually being our testimony was being shared at church, and it was on a little thing that they were handing out at the door. And so we knew that you guys would see that and would probably have questions. And so even leading up to it, we had already talked about, hey, we need to have a little bit more of a conversation and just make sure that that's not a surprise to y'all.
So was I 7 at that point?
Yeah.
Probably
So
7
we were
or 8.
So we were
7
at
and
where we
11.
are now.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so that was the Saturday night before, and we just said, hey, we don't know how much y'all know or remember, but this is going to come out tomorrow, and our story is going to be shared, and we didn't want y'all to be caught off guard. And we asked y'all, we were like, do you have any questions? And that's what you guys are actually referring to. So,
And that was a couple of
so
years
for
later.
y'all, I mean, y'all are answering it right here live. That was the first memory that you guys have about it, even though we had told you, and not only that, but we were living it, not in secret, but you guys just didn't, I mean, you weren't really aware of it. You were young. You were really young. So that was the first part of the question. Was I was just curious as to what y'all remembered, if you remembered us telling you anything, but for both of you, you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but do you remember a time along the way, maybe not that night because we kind of told you some of it, but do you remember a time growing up where you kind of were like, oh, that's what happened?
Yes, I have mine.
So this is Logan. This is the 5-year-old.
Yeah. So this is actually like 3 years ago, maybe. And there was just a conversation at church, like in the sermon that kind of had to do with infidelity. And I remember just looking at both of you and like not awkwardness, but like a little bit of a sore subject still. And I kind of like looked at mom, and she kind of started getting teary-eyed, and like you just started comforting her, and I was like, well, that's weird. Like I knew that there was a marriage crisis still, like in the back of my mind, but I didn't know what it was. And so this sounds really bad, but the whole way home I was like, well, who did it? I was like what happened? And so we pulled into the garage, and y'all had asked me a question, or maybe I asked you guys first, and I was like, so what really happened? And that's when y'all told me, and then y'all were like, I mean, they did a thing at church about it, and I was like, really? And y'all were like, let's see if we can find a picture of like the pamphlet, and like I read it for the first time, and like it took me back for sure, because I mean, like you said, like we knew, but we didn't know, and so I had never been like I'd never seen mom through that lens until literally 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was hard still. And I remember like not really knowing how I'm supposed to feel towards mom. But like, obviously she was my mother, and I was like, would my 5-year-old self would have been mad? Like, he would have been like, whatever, she's still making us breakfast. But like myself 3 years ago was like, well, I need to process this. So that was the first time that I like remember hearing the full story and understanding what was going on.
Yeah. So you were a early teenager.
Yeah, 14, 15 probably.
Yeah, and I remember that happening. It wasn't very long ago. But I knew that you probably along the way, did you kind of, you mentioned that you knew there was some sort of a marriage crisis, but you just never, you didn't know what it was.
No, I had guesses. Yeah. I had like some wild guesses. But no, I never knew what it was until about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And that was kind of part of how we planned to handle it, is to give them information as they were mature enough to handle it. Like you give a 5-year-old what a 5-year-old can handle, and you give an 11-year-old what an 11-year-old can handle. And you give, when he started asking questions at 14 or 15, then we were able to give him more information because that was the age that he could handle that.
And also, this was around the time that y'all began to talk about doing marriage ministry,
right?
Like, because y'all had always been like, "Well, we want to use our story," and I was always like, "Well, what is the story?" You know, and I always like every time it would be brought up, it was like, "Well, we had a marriage crisis," and like even in like conversation, like you still do this, like you never point it out. You're just like last weekend when we were talking to somebody, and you were like, "Yeah, that's my wife Heather. We run a marriage ministry. We had a marriage crisis however many years ago." And like, even then I was like I would hear stories before I knew, and I'd just be like, yeah, my parents had a marriage crisis, but I had no idea.
Sure. Okay. That's interesting. So, Luke, what about you? Do you remember at all? Or was there ever a time where you just think it kind of morphed into what?
I think the first time that I was like, I don't remember like how old I was or anything like that, but I just remember like finally putting the pieces together of what exactly happened, because I was kind of the same way. Like I didn't know exactly what happened, but I was definitely older because I did some stupid crap too. And so I remember like me and mom were having a conversation one time. I don't remember exactly what I did. I know it's something stupid, but I did something, and we were talking about reminders, and but bad reminders, like stuff that like triggers you. And she said something, she brought you up and was like, Dad would see his truck around town. And that's all I remember. And I don't obviously have no idea what he's referring to or who it was or what kind of truck or whatever, but that's when I put the pieces together, like, oh, okay, like, he saw the guy's truck around, so I put the pieces together then. But I was gonna go off of that and kind of talk about, like, I learned about it more and more, not because someone, like, y'all just sat down with Logan and, like, explained it to him when we asked a question. It was kind of like I would just gather little pieces of information based off, like, y'all were using y'all's story, like, not for marriage purposes for me, but stuff that y'all learned to teach me and help me through different things. But y'all were able to learn things that were able to help me that didn't have anything to do with marriage. So, like, that, even like that story with the truck and y'all, and like the negative reminders and triggers or whatever, like whatever I was going through at that point, like y'all had at one point learned that and was able to talk with me through it because of what happened, even though it had nothing to do with me being married or anything like that. So I just kind of put it together.
I would kind of build off of that, kind of towards like the main question, like how it's kind of affected me a little bit. Like, obviously there's been some negatives because like there's just kind of always that little thought in the back of your mind that happened in your family. But I would say honestly, it has been like really it sounds bad, but it's been helpful for me because like I hear you guys like occasionally drop like marriage tips here, marriage tips there to all these different people. And I actually remember somebody called me on the way home from like the three of us went to go grab dinner.
Yeah.
And he was kind of struggling and I mean they're dating.
Right. It was a relationship.
Yeah, it was just I mean it was a relationship. And he called me and I was like, well, I mean, this is like I was like, this is what I would do. And it was just things that I've picked up from you guys and like what y'all's story has brought to the table, like in me being able to like navigate my relationship. And like my girlfriend, she knows what happens or she know what happened as well. And so like sometimes we can kind of navigate situations like, hey, like my parents did this. Like obviously it's not the same thing.
Right.
It's like my parents did this in this situation to rebuild this. Like and so it's like it's been helpful to see it from that perspective. I don't know if that's just me like looking too far into things, but it's like
it's great.
Hey, like this is kind of how we can navigate situations differently. And no offense to you, but like the stupidity stuff, I was like, I need to just not do that, and I'll be fine.
That was a great example for you of what not to do.
He dusted the cobwebs off of everything, and I was like, well, I just don't do that, and I'm fine.
See, I'm gonna add on to that. First, hang on, I'm gonna backtrack. I got two things to say. Sorry.
Well, we can go as long as y'all want.
Okay, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit first. So when you were talking about like you use it to help like your relationship and stuff, like I found myself as I've gotten older and like understanding more of what happened. My friends and stuff that I'm very like closest to, like at college and stuff, I've used y'all's story in helping in other ways. But I mean, only my very, very close friends, because I'm not shouting it to the world, but I know anybody can know about it. But my very best friends, like we've had a lot of conversations, like, and I've used part of what I've learned from y'all and y'all's story to talk about that. The second thing I was going to say was the stupidity remind me. Like, I think for the longest time, like, I looked at myself as like in this family, like in my eyes, like to the listeners, I'm gonna say these are the best like parents in the world, and they're like in my eyes they're perfect. And so me not being perfect, like I struggled a lot because I was like they're literally perfect and I'm an idiot. And so I just like I don't know, it was really hard to see like me being imperfect to a perfect family. But I also like this story and what happened also reminds me that, yeah, nobody's perfect. Like my mom messed up, but here they are still perfect in my eyes and like still like the best parents in the world, even though like something happened. And so that just gives me comfort knowing that even though like I've made mistakes, like they still love me just like I still love them. So that's another encouragement to me too.
Like bouncing off of that a little bit, Mom's about to sob out
crying.
It's a good thing we're not on video today.
Another thing to kind of bounce off of that was like back to that conversation in the car. It was the first time that I was like, when my parents married, I knew that it wasn't perfect, but I had never like fully grasped that there was really something that happened. Like, divorce is not uncommon. Like I have friends that their parents are divorced, and like I was always just like, well, I'm just beyond blessed that my parents are still together, and like having that in front of me was, I mean, it's part of the reason it is the reason that I am who I am, just because you guys were able to navigate the situation. But to Luke's point, like I was saying, is that was the first time I was like, well, my mom isn't perfect. And I mean, even though I wasn't as stupid as Luke, I was still an idiot, and because I was teenage boy.
You still have a few years to be an idiot, too.
That's true.
Oh, you have a lot of years to be an
I
idiot,
got a
to
lot
be
of years.
honest.
Yeah. But I was just like, there's always just, hey, everybody makes mistakes. And I think another beautiful thing is like whenever we talk about sin, like as like all sin is sin. Like there's nothing that's better or worse in the sin realm. It's all sin. Like the stupid thing that I thought yesterday or the day before or the day before that is just as bad as whatever happened, And so I remember listening to that. It was like a podcast or like somebody had preached that, and I was just like, I remember thinking back to Mom, and I was just like, nobody is better than her because we've all sinned.
Yeah. Okay, so when you guys, just thinking about, you said a while ago when you said one time we walked out of a hotel room and you were like, and we came back in and you said, are y'all getting a divorce? Or, I mean, and you don't know that that's exactly how it happened, but was there ever, because y'all were so young, but the rest of the time until y'all really clued into what had happened, was there ever any fear? Like, did we ever show any type of, with our marriage relationship where y'all thought, oh, something's wrong? Are they going to get a divorce? Or how was that to you?
If anything, I thought y'all were going to get one over Luke.
Bro, we keep saying that people are going to be like, what did Luke do?
You can find his podcast. I'm kidding. Honestly, not really. Like we said, or like I said, I didn't really remember what was going on, but I was never like, oh no, my parents are gonna split up. I didn't ever really think that.
No, I didn't ever feel that way. I mean, but I didn't ever.
But
feel
also
that way.
like hearing, like we had, me and Dad, we were driving back from the mall or something. It was something random, and we were talking just kind of about the podcast and things like that. And you started telling me stories about like how you were feeling during those times. I can't remember why we started talking about it, but it doesn't matter. And you were like, that first, like you were like, there was like one night you woke up in the middle of the night and read the whole book of Job. And actually, we talked about Job at lunch, and like that story still clicks with me. Like I remember that story, and I think about it often whenever I like am going through struggles. I'm like, I think about that. But that was like one of the times that I was like, well, maybe Dad did think about having like divorcing Mom, but it wasn't like,
But
I guess I never really thought of that.
were. There was just never
in
a
the moment.
Yeah, not in the moment. And also, sorry, I just am talking. I guess like we just never really talked about this. Yeah, we just gotta let y'all do y'all's thing. There was a verse that got read out this morning. I think it's in Romans or Ephesians, but it's talking about like when you're allowed to
Divorce.
to divorce.
Yeah.
What book's that in? Do you know?
Well, he was talking through. It was Jesus' teaching.
Yeah.
So,
But
it was in one of the Gospels.
Yeah. Well, then I was completely wrong. Anyway, I know. It's Matthew or Mark.
Yeah.
It's one of the two.
Yeah.
Because me and my small group were walking through that book of the Bible, and my student pastor, we were reading those verses, and he was like, "What are your guys' opinion on this?" And like immediately my mind went to my family. I was like, "Well, I know my opinion," and there were a couple of guys that were like, "Oh, if I got cheated on, never in a million years am I staying with that woman." And those are like really some of the hardest moments. Like, not that it's like the same weight every time, but the first time that like I heard people saying that, I was like, I was kind of taken back a little bit. I even like this morning after that verse popped up, like the same thing kind of happened. It wasn't, I mean, it obviously wasn't to the same extent because we've been through so much life together. But I texted my girlfriend, and she doesn't even have her phone. I was like, this just happened, and like I can't talk to you about it, but it's like those emotions are real still.
I'm gonna say something else. Sorry.
You gotta jump in when you can. With
That's right.
This guy loves to talk.
You said mom just sitting there,
just sitting-
just sitting
Sorry.
there listening.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh no, I remember. I think also like for us, obviously not super soon, but sometime soon in the future, like we're gonna have wives. And I think that like knowing this story and like how it turned out and what God has done with it, like can really help me and Logan because like hopefully nothing like that ever happens in our relationships with our relationships with our wives, but like when something does happen, because something will, hopefully we can see it and be like, hey, like if they can get through that, like we can make it
100%.
through whatever
100%.
comes our way.
Yeah.
And so I think like that's encouraging too, is like we've seen something positive come out of like something terrible, and so whenever we get to that point where we're married, we can look at it and say, hey, we can get through whatever it is too, because they did it. And we have also like we don't got to send in questions to our to our parents.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I'll be like,
just call them,
bro, mom,
we need a double date.
this is what just happened. How in the world? Yeah, and it's nice. You got, yeah, we have free marriage coaching.
And Logan's pretty good at his relationship too, so I'll probably ask him some stuff.
Yeah, bro. One night he called me and he was like, I need you to ask mom and dad. I was like, bro, just text him yourself. He's like, nah, I can't.
All right, I'm gonna do, first of all, these people that are listening, they're probably right now extremely jealous of us because we have two boys that have more wisdom about them than most kids that are 22 and 17.
Yeah, 32 minutes worth as of now.
I mean,
This is 31 minutes of wisdom.
yeah, I don't care. These people will be eating this up. I mean,
I
you
bet
guys.
somebody is sitting. They drove to the gym for the first 10 minutes, parked their car, and have just been sitting there like, no, no way.
What's Logan gonna say now?
Oh, please tell more, Logan. Please.
No,
Drop some knowledge.
I think you guys. I think people really want to hear this, and so I got two more questions. Hopefully, I will remember them. But the first one is: Do you guys ever think, how life would have been different if we had
All
made
the time. Not all the time, but yes. I know. If y'all would have split up or what?
Yeah. If we had made different decisions, I mean, because obviously we both made decisions in here.
That's true.
In this, I mean, obviously, Mom had a major, spiritual awakening and just a change in her heart, and all kinds of stuff happened. Which she was a good mom before, but the person that she is now is completely different from who she was 13 years ago. And then obviously, I mean, you were reading. I mean, you heard the scripture today. I mean, I had every biblical right to leave the relationship as well, and so the choices that we made, I think about that. I mean, I think about it a lot, and I just wonder if you guys ever think about that. I mean, I think about who you guys are.
Yeah.
And if we were not together, I don't know what this would look like.
Yeah. Well, first off, Scripture clearly says he'll take what the enemy uses for evil and turn it for good, and he definitely did. Like we've kind of already said, like we've gotten a lot of wisdom from what has happened and what has occurred. Mom, stop crying, please.
I told y'all this is why. This is not why we didn't put it on YouTube this time, but yeah, it's probably best.
But yeah, I mean, he turns it for good, and we got to witness that, and like we understand that at a more complex level than probably most people do. I mean, there's obviously more stories out there that I don't know, but like even in my friend group, I don't know everybody's story, but I'm like, but I can look at a decision that somebody makes and like instantly just be like, oh, I still love you, and like I still care about you, and whatever happens is going to be turned for good. And like to that part, I would say, like, what if you guys didn't have that marriage crisis? Would I be able to forgive as easy as I do? Or would I be able to encourage like I do? Would I be able to love people the way that I do? I don't know. And so that's kind of that side of it. And then it's like, well, hey, what if you decided that it was best to leave the relationship? 2 Christmases would have been different. It's like, you know, I do think about that. It's like, what would we have done? Like, who would we have? I mean, I'm assuming we would have lived with you, and not having a mother figure is definitely something that would have changed the course of both of our lives. But because that's kind of my answer to that. I definitely do think about it, but it's not like, well, if this would have happened, what?
Right.
Calculated it all out. It's just like, man, life would have been
dwell
different.
on it.
Yeah, you don't dwell on it, but like,
Yeah.
like even when I heard it for the first time back in the garage, it's like I started thinking through that. I was like, well, what would have happened if? What would have happened if? It was kind of like when I heard that Mom had cancer for the first time. I was like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And so I think that, I don't know how Luke's brain works, so I don't really know what all he's thought about, but that's just kind of me. You guys know that about me. So I rabbit trail sometimes, but it's never like, but also I know that you guys are
rabbit trail sometimes. This whole podcast is him talking. He rabbit trail.
but also like,
Hey, but by the way, do these listeners know that you have a podcast? They should. Faith and Football. Go look it up.
Come
Yeah,
on.
you'll listen to him
Big
talk
shout
some
out.
more.
Yeah, if you like my voice.
Faith and Football. FUTBOL. It's the real football.
Yeah.
Not that
I
American
have a special
football.
guest on there. His name's Rusty.
Yeah. We do it together.
I was on there one time too.
Yeah.
If they just can't get enough of you guys, they can go.
They can go check it out. I think it's like episode 10. Anyways, but we went down a rabbit trail.
Rabbit trail. Well, what about you, Luke?
Yeah, go for it, bro. You talk.
Can I talk? All right, appreciate it. No, I'm just messing. Hey,
do you ever
you're
think-
smart. Give me a high five. You're
Do
doing
you ever
good. Oh,
think-
you're sweaty. Yeah, I'm nervous.
Do you ever think through, what could have been, what might have been?
No, I don't really think about like what could have been like family wise necessarily, like 2 Christmases or whatever. I don't really think about that. My main thoughts are like kind of what Logan was saying, like personally, like what would have been different about me if I hadn't seen this happen and it turned out for good, like Logan was saying. I think I learned a lot about life and have gained a lot of knowledge because of it that I wouldn't have otherwise, or I would have found it out through my own experiences, which would have been not fun for me. Yeah. So I think learning it through y'all has, like, it almost, it sounds bad, but it's almost kind of like hopefully I don't have to go through it and I've learned it already. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to go through some of the stuff myself and learned the hard way through myself and my own mistakes or my own whatever. Like I didn't have to learn it myself. I learned it through y'all, and that's been helpful too because as I've gotten older, there have been like instances where if I didn't know what I know because of y'all, then my life could have turned out differently past what already happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think that's more of what I think about is how would I have personally been different and not necessarily like how our family would.
And another add-on.
Did that make sense, by the way?
Yeah,
okay.
No, it made sense. Another add-on for me is like, especially in our relationships that like we're in, like with my girlfriend and Luke's girlfriend, it's like we do have some sort of, I think we've already mentioned this, but some sort of like, hey, it's gonna be okay. Like, cause there's moments where it's like, hey, we like there were like, I remember last year, clear as day, it was like 5 minutes of, oh my gosh, we should probably break up because this is making life unhealthy and XYZ, and then we were like, let's just figure it out. And like I was able to speak into that, into those moments, and like, I mean, and now I'm like, I love her to death, and it's like, what would have happened if, you know, you guys hadn't have showed me like that it's possible to get through whatever. I mean, obviously it wasn't as big of a deal, but it was like get through whatever's possible, and you know, that's just so encouraging and helpful.
Yeah, and I think like I kind of mentioned it earlier with my friends and stuff, but like without giving anything away, like we're talking about the girlfriends, like mine's been through some hard stuff, and like for me to see the positives of y'all's story, like I can kind of encourage and say like, hey, like I've seen positives, like I know you don't and you haven't, but there will be at some point. Like I fully believe that, and so I'm able to use y'all's story to also help in with other people as well. So
Okay, so last thing, and I really don't care how long this thing goes, to be honest.
I kind of wanted to keep talking, so it's an hour.
Well, we could always split it into
just
two.
talk
I
for
do
20
have editing.
Yeah.
I do have
Rank
way
these
to-
candies.
rank these candies blindly.
These
I
guys.
know. What is happening?
Hey, sometimes you need comedic relief in a situation.
Okay, so here's kind of where I want to end with. So let's just say
Did we answer that whole question
I think so.
for the most?
So if I mean, you guys have heard us talking with couples, and I mean, Logan's been here a lot the last year when we've really gotten into marriage coaching, and sometimes he gets to pop in and say hey to some of these couples all over the country.
So hey, if I've said hey to you before,
He got to see some at our retreat.
yeah, at the marriage retreat. Shout out to all my people.
But if you guys, if a couple that was going through, we'll just call it a marriage crisis, because it doesn't necessarily even have to be what we went through. But let's just say there's a couple that's sort of without hope, and they're like, we don't know if we're gonna make it, and they have kids, but they come to us, and maybe they just come to you guys. Like, what would you say to them? Like, what would you say to this couple from your perspective of what should they do? What have you seen through us that you could then speak to them?
You want to go first? Or you
You're
want me
pointing to each other.
No, I mean I'll go, but I was gonna let Luke talk first because he's been pouting over there. Let me talk first. Good answer. I'm just kidding.
So here.
Well, there's a lot I could say, so I'm trying to not talk for 20
Well,
minutes.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a lot of times we instruct or we counsel or coach couples that are in a situation and they both they're kind of at the end, they want to give up, whatever. And we always tell them, sometimes you just have to have a reason. Like, just start with a reason.
Yeah, I was gonna also.
I was
say
getting
that.
there. You put words in my mouth.
Yeah,
I was getting
okay.
there.
I was.
Go.
You want to go now?
Yeah,
I mean, Dad
you
took
got it.
every answer.
No, it's
No,
okay.
I mean, to go off of what you were starting to say, like, first of all, don't give up because there is hope, and and every time I get to. I interact a lot with adults, probably more than most 17-year-olds do. And like, I've heard a lot of people's stories, and nobody's as good as they look. And like, I know that like that's made clear. But to like see that firsthand is pretty, like, it's not special, but it's like, hey, we all are messed up. And nobody you shouldn't be scared that somebody's going to hardcore judge you. There probably will be people that do that, but there's also people that will not do that. And when you find those people, you're able to navigate life a whole lot easier. Like, I know that you guys had some hardships with friends, and but the friends that we know now are, I mean, you guys do life with them, and they support you and what you're doing and encourage you. I was gonna piggyback off your reason and went down a rabbit trail, but again, to piggyback off your thing, it's like I do think that y'all's reason for staying together was for us, like in a way. It was, hey, we want to keep our marriage together and we wanted to get through this. But I mean, if me and Luke weren't around, would it have been like, well, there's no reason for me to be around,
Right.
you know?
They had
And so-
a dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
That's
there, I
true.
mean, that's a reason.
Yeah.
Even if it's the dog.
Yeah.
Who's gonna take the dog?
Yeah.
Stay for the dog.
Can't play rock, paper, scissors over a dog.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but like, you know, I would say you're like to the kid's point of view, it's like, man, regardless of what happens, it's like you can prepare every sentence, every word you're gonna say to the kid, but you have no idea how he's gonna react or she's gonna react. But you just kind of have to trust the Lord with what that is. Like, you guys didn't plan out a speech in the garage, and I took it my way. I didn't take it Luke's way. I didn't take it my best friend's way. I took it my way, and I was able to navigate that. Also, like you want to be like, hey, is there anything that I can do? Is there anything? Space is a big one. Like sometimes when I'm thinking or navigating through stuff, like some people don't know this, but like we've had conversations when you guys are doing marriage coaching where I'm like, well, it's been hard on me because maybe I'm like downstairs by myself or don't have really anything to do. And to process that, like I don't always have to have you guys to process that with. And so kind of living with space has matured me because I've been able to think through things very differently without you guys holding my hand the whole way.
Yep.
That's kind of what I would say.
Luke, did you have anything to add there?
Mic drop. Bro, just end it. What was the question?
That was so long ago.
I don't even remember that.
No, I just, if there was just anything that a couple that's going through what we went through, and you from a kid's perspective, you know, is there anything that you would say or share with them?
Yeah, well, my first point was going to be to have a reason. But
And then that reason turns into
And
other reasons.
And that's
Right.
that's why I jump started that, because
Right.
that's what we tell them. Sometimes it's just your reason is because you want to try to keep your family together. You want to try to stay married for your kids. And a lot of the world will say, don't do that. Don't stay together just for your kids. But sometimes you just need a
Sometimes
reason.
that's
right.
all you have.
That's all you have. And so then you begin to rebuild the marriage after that. And I had a friend that, I mean, still a good friend of mine, but when this happened with us, that he told me, he said, I come from a broken family and his sister has never gotten over it, and they're in their 40s. And he was like, if for no other reason, he said, you're not going to hear this from many people, but I'm telling you from a kid from a broken family, stay together for your kids. And so we just teach
sometimes
that
you
a
just
lot
need a
because
reason.
that's just sometimes the only reason.
Yeah.
But then you can begin to rebuild.
Right. Right.
So sorry, Luke. I jumped.
I think I'm gonna talk to maybe the ones that like listen, but haven't, like, they're listening because they're going through a crisis. But I feel like there's probably some people that like haven't reached out to y'all or like anybody else, and they're just kind of trying to deal with it on their own. And I think from personal experience and from like what I've seen with my parents is like you can't do life by yourself and you can't fix all your problems by yourself. And like, first of all, like ultimately, like you need the Lord to be able to fix anything, like a crisis, whatever it is you're going through. But also like you need other people that come beside you that are going to fight for you and fight with you, because you can't do it by yourself. You got to have somebody. And so I think like maybe encouraging those people that are going through something that they're kind of scared to reach out to people and say like, hey, we're going through this, maybe like to save face or whatever it is. I think like there's people in this world that have gone through the same thing you're going through. Like, you're not the first person to go through whatever you're going through. You're not the first couple to go through it. And I think that finding someone that has gone through it or gone through something maybe worse or whatever the case, like, you got to have somebody in your corner fighting for you. So I would encourage to not be scared to reach out to people and tell people what's going on. And like Logan kind of said, there's going to be people that may judge you for it, but those aren't the people that you want in your corner anyways.
That's right.
And so that's fine. Let them, like, go find somebody that will fight for you.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, like, obviously not from marriage, but personal experience. Like, for me, like, I have my people that will always fight for me and are in my corner. And I know for a fact that friends and stuff from college see me as that person, as I'm always going to fight for you and be in your corner. And most of that is because of what my parents have gone through. And I'm like, well, you tell me whatever you want, bro. Like, I don't care what you've done, because I've either done it or I've seen it happen or I've seen worse.
Or you've heard
and
it.
heard it or whatever. And so even for me, like, I know how important it is to have someone in your corner for myself, and how important it is to be that person that's in someone else's corner. And so I know how important it is. So that's my encouragement, is don't be scared to tell somebody, because you can't do it by yourself. So.
That's good. Heather, I mean, just sitting there listening, you don't want to say anything?
Well, you know, I didn't know what this episode was going to look like. Of course, the camera angle wasn't working for us to have all four people, but I'm super glad that it didn't, because I was crying most of the interviews. But, you know, you want to be perfect for your kids. You just do. Like, as a mom, it's just like, I never want to let them down or hurt them. And so that's hard. I mean, it's hard to hear. It's hard to remember. You know, you want them to obviously see how far God has brought you. And I think them being able to look at my infidelity from the other side of the healing is a positive thing. And so I am super glad that they were really, really young and don't remember a lot of those early days. But it's also a reminder to me that there's only one perfect parent, and I'm not it. And so the fact that both of them are sitting next to me, and I know that they have a heavenly Father that will never let them down, and a heavenly Father that will not disappoint, is it makes it okay. It makes it okay. So, you know, it's hard to hear, but gosh, I'm proud of them and proud of how they view what we went through, and the fact that they are thankful for the lessons they've learned through what we went through. And, you know, free marriage advice. That was awesome to hear. It's like, yes. So, but anyway, if you're that parent that's listening to this and you're like, I've ruined my children, or what I've been through has really hurt them. There are painful parts to it when you share with children your failures. It's really hard to talk through those with your children, but I encourage you to point them to their Heavenly Father and remind them that they do have a perfect parent, and that's the only place they will find where they won't be disappointed.
Well, our story is a story of hope, and that's why we share it with couples, and it's all about sharing with them how they can have hope in their marriage. But I think you guys just listening have seen that our kids turned out pretty dang good. And, you know, in spite of the screw ups that we were, you know, God just can take a mess and make it his message. And so, I mean, these two boys are going to take what has happened in our marriage, and they're going to continue. It's going to be part of their message for years and years to come. And so we're just super proud of both of them. And I know I'm sorry that all you out there are really, really jealous of our boys right now. But they are pretty incredible. So, hey, thanks for sticking with us for almost an hour. Logan, do you want to just go on for about 6 minutes? I mean, we could tell some jokes. I mean, I
have a sermon in my back pocket I can find somewhere.
6 minutes.
I think you've already given about a 55-minute.
With singing summer shorts,
I'm not doing
summer.
Y'all gave me the most
Summer
uncomfortable
shorts,
chair. My
shorts.
bottom hurts.
My bottom.
Can I say? Can I say
There
butt
were
on
so
here?
many words that just went through his head
was
right
like- I
there,
was
and he
like-
went with bottom.
I was like, what am I allowed to say on the marriage podcast?
It's okay. We
My
probably said it before.
Gluteus maximus.
All right, I do think it's a good time to shut this thing down. So, hey, thanks for sticking with us. I am making a prediction that this is going to be the most listened to episode ever. This is pretty incredible and pretty powerful. So, thank you guys for. I did. Thank you guys for joining us, and thank you all for listening. We will see you next time on The Redeemed Marriage. Take care. Peace.